Hey there, thank you so much for starting off your week with us. Good to see you on this Monday. I'm Veronica Dela Cruz. Let's take a look at the top stories we're tracking for you right now.
This loss we have suffered is unspeakable and devastating.
More than 1,000 federal workers are here on the island of Maui, with more than 400 of them dedicated to search and rescue efforts.
Tragically, it took less than a single day for us to lose Lahaina.
Right now, we have flooding on all of our roads. There's no way in or out of Palm Springs, and that's the case for the majority of the Coachella Valley.
We're not built for this kind of rainfall. That's my main concern.
You know, right now the major center of the storm's gone through, and so we're hoping that we've seen the worst of it.
There is a dark history of Jewish caricatures in the media.
Responding to critics, the Bernstein family defended Cooper and said Bradley chose to use makeup to amplify his resemblance, and we're perfectly fine with that.
Hey there, welcome to Scripps News Live. Great to see you today. We begin this hour in Southern California. Almost 60,000 people right now without power after Hurricane Hilary moves through. The tropical storm scattering debris, causing flooding, mudslides, and knocking out 911 emergency services to Palm Springs and surrounding areas. The storm causing schools across the area to close their doors today. Our meteorologist Scotty Withers tells us more about the first tropical storm to hit Southern California in 84 years.
It has been a busy 24 hours in Southern California. Let me show you what's happening here. I-10 slowly reopened near Palm Springs. This is the westbound lanes. They've been sitting still for a while. Now the police here are starting to take cars off on the exit ramp, but still backed up for miles and miles. Take a look over there on the eastbound lanes. You can see we still got a raging river over here. No cars really going through. Every once in a while, they'll let one truck go through, but that lane also full of mud. They're going to have to clear that out before really any vehicles are able to get going here on this stretch of I-10 near Palm Springs. All of this happening because we had a lot of rain coming down in California yesterday. Here in Palm Springs, near records, they almost got a year's worth of rain in just one day. Los Angeles, from San Diego up to LA, they also had rain, some flooding in some intersections there. In Santa Clarita, a road actually collapsing because the water getting underneath it and caving it out. That's why you should not be driving on any roads that may be flooded. Take a look. This is where we are now seeing Hilary's remnants moving north from Northern California, western Las Vegas, heading up into Oregon and into Idaho. There are going to be some flooding issues there. And take a look in the Atlantic, 3 named tropical storms. They're all going to be fish storms, not going to have any issue on the continental U.S., but that system there in the Gulf, that is going to develop in the next 24 hours, and it's going to be either a tropical storm or depression, going to move over towards Texas's lower coast, basically Corpus Christi down to the Mexican border. You're going to have an impact tonight into tomorrow with a couple inches of rain.
All right, Scotty, thank you so much for that report. Now, the remnants of Hilary are moving through Nevada. Clark County, where Las Vegas is located, declared a state of emergency yesterday due to the potential for strong wind and a lot of rain. Rachel Moore with Scripps News Las Vegas joins us now live. So, Rachel, what are the conditions like right now? I don't see any rain. What has it been like?
Yeah, you know, we haven't gotten any rain in the area of Las Vegas that we are standing in right now. We're in the eastern part of Las Vegas. But, you know, cloud coverage. We are watching for rain. Our meteorologist tells us that we will get rain throughout the day. In fact, we're going to be under a flood watch until 5 o'clock our time this evening. And we've seen severe flooding across the valley, as well as on our Las Vegas Strip and in neighborhoods. Some neighborhoods seeing as much as nearly an inch and a half of rain. And just to give you an idea of how much that is, that's the amount of rain that we're seeing today, as well as what we got over the weekend. That's as much rain as we usually get in an entire year. And that's why a lot of folks are coming to this lot that I'm standing in. This is where Las Vegas Fire and Rescue has laid out some dirt and a bunch of sandbags so that folks can fill them up and take them back to their homes. We've seen floodwater so high that sidewalks are disappearing and the tires of cars are just covered. And even in our mountain area, residents are now under a boil water order because of flood damage to their water system. Their water system is leaking right now. now. And we've also seen a lot of power outages across the valley. Up to 1,000 homes have lost electricity. And right now crews are trying to restore that power so they can get people back up online. But again, we are expecting more showers to come in through Las Vegas. And so everybody is preparing out here. Veronica.
All right, Rachel Moore with Scripps News Las Vegas. We appreciate it. Thank you, Rachel. So President Biden heading to Maui today to see the destruction from those devastating wildfires. First Lady Jill Biden and FEMA Administrator Deanna Criswell will join him. The Bidens will be meeting with survivors of the historic town Lahaina, which is virtually destroyed. Republicans criticizing the Biden administration over its response to the Hawaiian wildfires. National correspondent Maritza Giorgio joins us now live from Maui with the latest. So Maritza, explain to us the scope of the devastation there and what a visit from the president might mean to the people of Maui.
Well, good day to you, Veronica. Listen, the scope of the devastation, like most disasters we cover, is so much more than you can imagine. You see images on your TV, and then you get here and you see the whole picture, and it's horrific. And the president even mentioned that his visit today gives him a chance to get on the ground, see the extent of the damage, see the extent of the devastation so that he can properly make a plan on how to move forward and how to recover and how to rebuild Lahaina. But he won't necessarily have a warm welcome. There has been criticism of his administration, and people here, not only are they in the middle of this tremendous grief, but they are frustrated. I'll tell you, the island is empty. Kaanapali Beach yesterday at 11 a.m. on a Sunday was completely empty. We saw one other person. The overflow rental car lot here at OGG at the airport completely full. A lot of tourists or a lot of locals here saying it looks like the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic when all of a sudden everybody left. 46,000 people departed from this airport in the days immediately after this fire. And so, you know, that's one of the questions that people here have for the president, because unlike COVID, there is not this long-term promise of financial help. There's no moratorium on mortgages and rental payments and loan repayments. So how will the federal administration, how will his administration help them sustain for the long term, and not only just help them financially, but also so that they can just breathe and focus on the grief, focus on the loss here. Everybody we talk to has some story about how they were affected, or they know someone who's affected, or they've lost a loved one, or they are still missing a loved one. And so it is impacting everybody here, and people are very, very concerned about how they can both grieve and live and pay their bills. And so there are going to be a lot of questions for the president when he lands here today.
All right, Maritza Giorgio reporting live from Maui. It really is tough. We appreciate it, Maritza. Thank you. So hurricane season just getting started, but FEMA says it's already running out of money. Federal meteorologists say a record 15 weather-related disasters have caused more than $1 billion in damage this year. The FEMA chief now warning the agency's relief fund is expected to run out by the end of the month. And he says Congress needs to pass a $12 billion funding bill to avoid a lapse. National correspondent Stephanie Sandoval has more on the agency's next steps.
The Federal Emergency Management Agency's disaster relief fund is dwindling as the climate crisis continues to intensify natural disasters across the country. FEMA says funding could run out by mid-September. FEMA Administrator Deanna Criswell says the agency has a plan in place to ensure there's enough funding to go around.
And so what we will do is we will continue to push projects, recovery projects into the next fiscal year. So we always have enough money to support any of the immediate life-saving needs. So we will take measures to ensure that there is always going to be enough funding to continue to support immediate responses to these types of severe weather events.
President Joe Biden has requested an additional $12 billion in funding for disaster relief efforts from Congress. But on CBS's Face the Nation, Criswell says it may not be enough.
That dollar amount may need to go up as we go into next fiscal year, and what we're going to need to do to be able to continue to respond to the increased number of events that are happening across the nation.
The lack of funding comes as the government responds to devastating fires in Hawaii, which has killed more than 100 people. and as peak hurricane season approaches. The shortfall also comes at a time when Southern California deals with its first tropical storm in 84 years.
California is a very capable state with a lot of resources, but we have also moved in additional resources just in case it exceeds capability so we can quickly come in and support if asked.
Brian Ferguson, the Deputy Director of California Governor's Office of Emergency Services, says it's all hands on deck.
While hurricanes are a new challenge that we face, unfortunately, our state's had a lot of practice in recent years with other disasters.
Stephanie Sandoval, Scripps News.
Maui has a long road ahead right now. Monetary donations will be crucial for survivors struggling to piece their lives back together again. And Scripps News is supporting those relief efforts through the Scripps Maui Wildfire Relief Campaign. Just scan the QR code that you see right there on the bottom of your screen if you would like to help. And you can take a deeper dive on all these stories and much more online. Feel free to check us out at scripsnews.com. Also at Scripps News on X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and of course on Threads. Coming up next on Scripps News Live, the week ahead for Donald Trump. The former president planning to skip one major event but has no choice on attending the other. And we would like to hear from you. Call us on our Scripps News Viewer Hotline toll free. That number is on your screen right now. It's 1-833-4SCRIPPS. Feel free to share your comments and your story ideas.
Law enforcement calls it house stealing, when cyber thieves transfer the title to your home out of your name to take out fraudulent loans or even sell it. How do you protect yourself? Get Triple Lock Protection from Home Title Lock. Our Triple Lock Protection gives you 1, 24/7 monitoring, 2, urgent alerts if any title changes, and 3, title restoration help from our team of experts. Do you know if your title is safe? Check your title status now at HometitleLock.com.
I've been putting off getting life insurance, and I'm not getting any younger.
Have you been thinking about getting a life insurance plan but just keep putting it off? Was that a yes? Then this message is for you. I'm David Denowitz, and I know the importance of life insurance. And that's why I'm here to tell you it's not too late to get the coverage you need.
If you're between the ages of 45 and 85, you can get a policy with a benefit of up to $25,000 and rates available at $5 a week. The phone lines are now open. Just call 800-354-6059.
And your acceptance is guaranteed.
I have a pre-existing medical condition. Is my acceptance guaranteed?
Yes.
Can I get accepted without a medical exam?
Yes. If you're between 45 and 85, you can't be turned down for this guaranteed acceptance life insurance regardless of your health. Plus, there's no medical exam and no health questions. And rates start at just $5 a week. Remember, if you're between 45 and 85, you can't be turned down regardless of your health. Nothing's more important than family. So call now, pick up the phone, and get guaranteed acceptance life insurance today.
Just call 800-354-6059.
I'm 72 and on a fixed income. Is my acceptance guaranteed?
Yes, your acceptance is guaranteed, and your rate can never go up for any reason. You can't be turned down regardless of your health. There's just one simple question. Are you between 45 and 85? If you answered yes, don't wait another minute. Call now.
The call is absolutely free, and there is no obligation to enroll. Just call 800-354-6059. That's 800-354-6059.
How does Klein Inspector get among the most big verdicts and settlements of any law firm in the country? Because Klein Inspector is an award-winning team with 5 doctor lawyers, the most of any firm in the United States. And that's why the New York Times calls Klein Inspector a powerhouse law firm. So if a defective product, motor vehicle accident, or medical malpractice caused a catastrophic injury, call Klein Inspector.
Republican presidential candidates preparing to make their way to Milwaukee this week for the first presidential debate of the 2024 election. But former President Trump says that he is not going. He's opted out of taking part in the debate as his lead over the other candidates continues to grow. National political correspondent Kevin Cirilli standing by live for us in Washington right now. So Kevin, even if he isn't there and isn't going to be debating, he is likely to dominate the debate. What are you hearing right now in terms of what we can expect?
Veronica, I mean, you're spot on in that analysis, because here we are talking about will he or won't he. Now he says he's not going to attend. We could have a mugshot of the former president later this week when he shows up to court. He's dominating the biggest story this week in Republican politics. And if we pull up that CBS News YouGov poll, he's up by 40 percentage points, more than 40 percentage points. 62% of Republicans want Trump to be the party's nominee. And I was crunching some numbers with some sources earlier, some strategists here in Washington, D.C. There's this firm called Firehouse Strategies, and they actually released a survey that found that 77% of, get this, Veronica, Trump supporters want Trump to attend the first debate. 68% of Republicans overall want him to attend that first debate, but he's not going to do it, and he's going to dominate in terms of this. And that could, according to at least one Republican senator, Senator Bill Cassidy, prove a political risk for him. Take a listen to what Senator Cassidy said over the weekend on CNN. Here he is.
I think so, but obviously that's up to him. I mean, you're just asking my opinion, but he will lose to Joe Biden if you look at the current polls. I'm a Republican. I think any Republican on that stage in Milwaukee will do a better job than Joe Biden. And so I want one of them to win. If former President Trump ends up getting the nomination but cannot win a general, that means we'll have 4 more years of policies which have led to very high inflation, to a loss of purchasing power for the average American equivalent to $10,000, and to many other things which I think have been deleterious to our country's future.
So Senator Cassidy, Veronica, is making that general electability argument. Trump world's pushing back on that in the last few days because they are anticipating that attack of general electability coming from their opponents. And Kellyanne Conway, for example, has been out in full force over the last few days. And she's been saying, if you look at the crosstabs of some of these polls, Republicans actually now believe that Trump would be more likely to beat Biden than Ron DeSantis, Florida governor. So, you know, it's interesting to dive into these polls and see Trump supporters want him to attend the debate. They think that he can beat Biden, but whether or not it has any impact, I guess we'll know by the end of the week to see when we get some post-debate polling and post-mugshot even polling. Never thought I would say that about a president, Veronica.
Well, you're right about that. I mean, regardless of whether or not he even makes the debate, he's still going to continue to dominate the news cycle because, like you just said, there may be a mugshot coming, you know, by Friday. We don't know. Kevin's really live for us in Washington. Kevin, always appreciate it. Thanks so much. Ukraine getting some F-16 fighter jets. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky getting a first-hand look at them yesterday during a visit to Denmark. The Scandinavian nation and the Netherlands sending several jets to Ukraine, and they aren't expected to be deployed for at least the next month. President Zelensky saying that they will help his country regain control of the skies. Speaking in Denmark, President Zelensky warned that Ukraine isn't the only country at risk if Russia wins the war.
All of Russia's neighbors are under threat if Ukraine does not prevail. International law will not be resuscitated. Democracies of the world, each of them can become a target either for missiles or for mercenaries or for destabilization, and I'm sure you can feel it. But Ukraine will prevail.
In addition to the F-16 jets, the Dutch and Danish governments working to train Ukrainian pilots on flying these planes. Coming up next on Scripps News Live, the backlash behind a new movie starring Oscar winner Bradley Cooper. Why the actor and his film are now under scrutiny. We'll be right back.
You're looking pretty good, Mr. Johnson. But we need to take some x-rays today.
That's why.
Yes, x-rays are expensive, but the front desk said you recently enrolled in a Medicare Advantage plan with extra benefits that now cover today's x-rays and cleaning costs.
Okay.
Well, Medicare Parts A and B do not cover your routine dental coverage like cleanings, fillings, or x-rays. Yes, you have a Medicare Part C plan, commonly called Medicare Advantage. Medicare Part C plans cover everything in Part A and Part B, plus extra benefits like dental, vision, and hearing.
Wow.
That's great that my plan includes dental coverage that helps pay for these costs.
Yes, Mr. Johnson. A Medicare Part C plan could include dental coverage that pays for routine dental exams and teeth cleanings, dental x-rays, fillings, tooth extractions, root canals, dentures, implants, and crowns.
If you're losing coverage, moving, or new to Medicare, call to speak with a licensed insurance agent. You don't get a plan with these benefits automatically, so it's always good to call to see if there's a plan with extra benefits available in your zip code. If you don't have a Medicare Part C plan, call now because there may be plans available with additional benefits that are simply not covered under Medicare Parts A and B, like routine dental coverage. In fact, 24 million Medicare beneficiaries do not have any dental coverage. Here's the good news. If you're on Medicare, you can call even if you called last year. We will check to see if there is a Part C plan available in your area with additional benefits. Remember, you don't get Medicare Part C benefits automatically, so call now for your free 2023 no-obligation Medicare benefits review. Just call 800-614-5203. 800-614-5203.
Female hair thinning is so common, but I see it every day in my chair. Women don't want another supplement for it. They want a solution. That's when it's time for Hers. They offer doctor-trusted options for thicker, fuller hair. It starts with their free online hair quiz. Then you share some info about your health history, and a medical provider can recommend a personalized treatment for you. Through Hers, you can see regrowth results in as few as 3 to 6 months.
And that's like before your next haircut.
Take the hair quiz today at forhers.com.
We found over 14,000 bridges around the country have been in poor condition for over a decade. Does that surprise you?
After uncovering thousands of bridges decaying towards disaster, U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg reacts to our findings.
Congress after Congress, administration after administration, we didn't see the kind of major investment that was really needed.
Scripps News investigates decaying bridges in America, Tuesday night at 8/7 Central, only on Scripps News Tonight.
This week, the Writers Guild plans to meet again with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. Both sides are looking to end a strike that's lasted now for more than 3 months. And they met for talks again on Friday, the second time since writers hit the picket line, and nothing came of the meeting. But they are reportedly still far apart on major issues. The Guild told members the negotiations are ongoing. With Hollywood's writers and actors both on strike right now, many TV and film productions have either been on pause or they've been scrapped altogether. In other entertainment news, Maestro is a biopic about famed composer Leonard Bernstein, and it's coming to Netflix this holiday season. It's already been garnering some controversy online for actor Bradley Cooper's portrayal of the musician. Entertainment correspondent Casey Mendoza has the details for us.
Leonard Bernstein is best remembered for crafting the music for Broadway's West Side Story, but his legacy also includes deep ties to the global Jewish community. His biopic, Maestro, is now facing criticism from Jewish people online for casting non-Jewish actor Bradley Cooper in the role of the composer. But some in the community say the criticism is overshadowing Bernstein's story. Last summer, Netflix released a photo of actor Bradley Cooper on set in full body makeup as famed composer Leonard Bernstein. Cooper is the star and director behind the biopic Maestro, but the 9-time Oscar-nominated actor quickly garnered criticism online for wearing a prosthetic nose as part of his costume. Critics questioned whether the prosthetic nose was anti-Semitic and debated whether Cooper was committing quote-unquote Jew face in his portrayal. A statement from the organization Stop Anti-Semitism called it disgusting and exaggerated, and many argue the use of the prosthetic nose was akin to the deeply anti-Semitic caricatures seen in 1930s Nazi propaganda.
There is a dark history of Jewish caricatures in the media, right, of Jews with these elongated noses and, long fingers that, with money bags and other things, really this old school classical anti-Semitism. And to be clear, that still exists.
Uriel Epstein is the CEO of the Renew Democracy Initiative, and he says anti-Semitic caricatures and stereotypes still pervade much of society, noting specifically the anti-Semitic harassment and discrimination by Jeremy Corbyn, former leader of UK's Labour Party. Beyond Corbyn, comments many deem anti-Semitic have also recently been spread by celebrities like Ye, formerly known as Kanye West, and NBA star Kyrie Irving. The controversy surrounding Maestro comes after these incidents, but Epstein says it's not the same.
We need to be able to distinguish between those types of caricatures that are inherently mean-spirited and that are meant to attack a people, and depictions which are not meant to attack anyone. They're merely meant to depict this great icon of classical music in what I imagine will be a fairly loving biopic.
Responding to critics, the Bernstein family defended Cooper and said, "It happens to be true that Leonard Bernstein had a nice big nose. Bradley chose to use makeup to amplify his resemblance, and we're perfectly fine with that. We're also certain that our dad would have been fine with it as well." Speaking against the criticism of having a non-Jewish actor play a Jewish icon, which is also the case of Cillian Murphy's portrayal of J. Robert Oppenheimer and Helen Mirren's portrayal of former Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir, Epstein and others in the Jewish community say it doesn't matter to them as long as the stories are told well. Maestro is set to premiere at the Venice Film Festival next month, while Golda, the biopic about Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir, debuts in theaters later this month. Casey Mendoza, Scripps News, Chicago.
All right, Casey, thank you for that. And other entertainment news now, Barbie's dominance at the box office coming to an end thanks to DC's latest superhero flick.
How did you get it to do that?
I think he likes me.
Oh my goodness, look at that. Blue Beetle netting about $25 million in the U.S. over the weekend. It was originally going to go straight to streaming before Warner Brothers changed course. The movie follows a young man's transformation into a superhero after finding a scarab from outer space. It is the studio's first movie with a Latino lead and a mainly Latino cast. I'm Veronica Dela Cruz. Thank you so much for joining us. For the audience leaving us right now, your local programming is up next. Don't forget, you can always check us out online at scripsnews.com. Now, if you are staying with us, we have much more news headed your way right here on Scripps News Live, including a significant step regarding the gender pay gap in the United States. We'll have the details, plus this.
I'm John Matarese. Most of us hate shrinkflation, where you pay more and get less for your money. But it turns out sometimes when a product gives you less, it's not a bad thing. I'll explain coming up.
One way to avoid expensive car repair bills is to be a race car driver. The other is Endurance.
Endurance saved me more than $7,000.
Without Endurance, breakdowns can cost thousands. With Endurance, you're covered.
Endurance covers nearly every car on the road. Plus,
you pick the mechanic you trust.
Act now for $300 off any plan, plus a year of elite benefits and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Call 1-855-588-2580 now.
The Omaha Steaks Anniversary Sale is here. For over a century, we've guaranteed the highest quality in everything we offer. To celebrate, we're offering you 50% off site-wide. That means you'll save 50% and get our 100% guarantee that you'll love every bite. Never tried Omaha Steaks? Save an extra $30 with promo code FIRSTTIME. Visit omahasteaks.com/TV today.
If you're living with diabetes, this is the sound that could change your life.
Great news for people living with diabetes. Now you can wear a continuous glucose monitor and eliminate routine finger sticks. The days of repeated, painful finger sticks are over.
Call 800-820-9953.
If you use insulin daily to manage your condition, a continuous glucose monitor could help you control your diabetes and reduce or eliminate those painful finger sticks. If you have Medicare or private insurance, US Med can deliver a CGM system right to your door. And if you qualify, there may be little or no cost to you. Shipping is free, and we'll even bill your insurer directly. Call now to get your continuous glucose monitoring system so you can take control of your diabetes and get back to enjoying life.
Call 800-820-9953. That's 800-820-9953.
Hey there, welcome to Scripps News Live. Great to see you on this Monday. I'm Veronica Dela Cruz. Let's get you caught up on the day's top stories. Former President Trump says he doesn't expect he will take part in any Republican presidential debates. He wrote on Truth Social, quote, "The public knows who I am and what a successful presidency I had. I will therefore not be doing the debates," end quote. Polls show Trump with a commanding lead over his opponents despite 4 sets of indictments. New research shows COVID-19 raised patients' high blood pressure risks. Scientists monitored thousands of COVID and flu patients from 2020 to 2022, and they had no history of hypertension. 6 months after they were treated, 1 in 5 developed high blood pressure, and it was twice as likely in people who had COVID than in people who had the flu or other respiratory illnesses. Today, former President Biden, and the First Lady will be getting a closer look at the devastation in the wildfire damage on Maui. They're going to be touring what was once the historic town of Lahaina from the air and ground. The president pledging to help with Maui however he can. Congressional correspondent Stephanie Lieberman explains why it's important for presidents to take the time out to visit a disaster area.
From wildfires and hurricanes to mass shootings and terrorist attacks, Americans have come to expect a presidential visit when disaster strikes. And a look back through history shows it's a tradition that's been building for decades.
The president and the first lady will be traveling to Hawaii on Monday.
The purpose of a presidential visit is typically two-sided. Victims of a disaster are looking for comfort and empathy, but they also want to know what the government is doing to help.
Whether it's, a flood or an earthquake or these terrible fires that happened in Hawaii, it always involves the government. It always involves federal aid because very often the states can't handle it themselves.
The timing of a visit can make a big difference.
You can't wait too long. It looks like you don't care. You're not paying attention. But if you get in there right away, you're going to disrupt things.
President speaking at the site of tragedy goes all the way back to President Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. But as society and technology changed, so did the expectations. Communication became easier, travel became faster, and television put these moments on screen.
I think Lyndon Johnson is one of the first presidents to go to a disaster area after a hurricane, so that we now expect our presidents to do that.
Presidential visits can be turning points in an administration. Take President Bill Clinton after the Oklahoma City bombing, or President George W. Bush at Ground Zero. Disaster gives political leaders a chance to put partisanship aside.
When Superstorm Sandy ravages the East Coast, particularly the New Jersey area, what was really good for Obama and for Chris Christie, the Republican governor of New Jersey, was that the two came together.
But a misstep can haunt a presidency long after the administration is over.
Probably better not to go at all than to make a halfway measure, which is what George W. Bush did in flying over in Air Force One, flying over the ravages of Katrina. And that haunted him for the rest of his presidency.
The impact of a presidential visit extends internationally as well. It can be good for a U.S. president or even former president to visit another country when tragedy strikes there in order to demonstrate U.S. leadership among the free world. Stephanie Lieberman, Scripps News, Washington.
All right, shrinkflation is when we pay the same price for a product which has shrank in size. And most of us can agree that it is not necessarily a good thing, but there are times when it actually can be. Consumer reporter John Matarese explains.
We've heard more and more cases of shrinkflation at the grocery store in recent years, where you pay more but get less. But after one viewer contacted us about a possible case of shrinkflation, we found that sometimes getting less is not a bad thing.
Jerry Bluss says half the things in her fridge have shrunk in recent years.
That's gotten smaller.
Now, while doing a load of laundry recently, she thought she found another case of suspected shrinkflation.
I started a new box and I thought, whoa, wait a minute.
Jerry's new box of Tide was 22 ounces smaller, 232 ounces versus 254 ounces.
The old box was giving me 180 loads. The new box is supposed to give me 183 loads.
She was stumped.
How is P&G doing that? Because how can I get more loads out of a box that weighs less?
So we contacted P&G, the maker of Tide, which claims it's not shrinkflation at all. The company tells us Tide recently improved and concentrated the powder formula. That means there's more cleaning ingredients per ounce. That's why you get virtually the same amount of loads in a smaller size and the same clean you've come to trust with Tide. We turn to shrinkflation guru Edgar Dworsky of Consumer World. He says cases like these are rare and that this type of information should be on packages loud and clear.
So people understand that you can now use less because it's now a stronger formula.
As to where things stand on shrinkflation,
it seems to have tapered off just a drop. But as we keep seeing these announcements from major companies that they're raising prices, that's really a euphemism for giving you less.
Jerry says it's nice to see when one shrinking product is actually a good thing, and that way you don't waste your money. I'm John Matarese.
And the Federal Reserve is keeping track of savings we socked away during the pandemic, and it expects us to exhaust that money by the end of next month. The Fed is saying Americans saved up more than $2 trillion, but people began withdrawing that money in 2022 at a rate of about $100 billion per month. New numbers suggest the average working women's pay is getting closer now to a man's salary. They say women's median workday earnings were 84% of men's pay, and that is the narrowest pay gap ever. Our Megan Lopez takes a closer look at the numbers for us.
The pay gap between women and men in the U.S. is now at an all-time low. That's according to new data out from the U.S. Labor Department. Women now make 84.5 cents for every dollar men earn. That's up 2 cents from last year. Part of the reason for that closing gap is better education, but also the career fields women are now entering at a higher rate, like STEM fields. But while that news may sound promising, Rakesh Kocher from the Pew Research Center says the gender pay gap has more or less stalled out over the past 2 decades. He says your age plays a role, and not in the way you might think.
That younger women are seeing a much narrower pay gap. When women first step into the labor market, they make more than 90 cents to the dollar when compared with men of the same age. But as these women and men age, the gender wage gap increases.
A big reason for that is because more women step out or take a step back in their careers between ages 35 and 44 to take care of their families. The COVID pandemic took a toll on women in the job market for that reason, so much so that it was actually called a she-cession. But things are rebounding, and with low unemployment, employers are offering more to attract talent. So how can women earn more? Well, for that, I spoke with Julia Pollack, the chief economist at ZipRecruiter.
Women are about half as likely to negotiate their offer. But among people who do negotiate their offers, men and women are almost equally likely to get an improvement. About 90% of people who negotiate their offer get some improvement in their offer. So don't leave money on the table. Stand up for yourself.
Some other things you can do: cast a wide net for jobs so you have more than one offer in hand when you're negotiating. Also, do your homework so you know how much your peers in the same position are earning. But Pollack says employers also need to be more transparent about what they're paying, and job sites need to be disclosing this too, since they have more industry data on hand.
That was Megan Lopez reporting there for us. Straight out on Scripps News Live, yet another COVID strain emerging as we head toward fall and winter. We're going to explore what this all means, especially as kids head back to school. Also, taking a swim could be dangerous. Several people have died this summer after coming into contact with a flesh-eating bacteria. What to know before you wade into the water. That's next.
Best thing I've ever done. That's what Freddie told me.
A person like me needed to get a reverse mortgage to change my life. It was the best thing I've ever done. And
Really?
yes, without a doubt.
Joanne said just about the same thing.
It absolutely is the best thing I ever did.
Jack put it a different way. To him, it was about having his grandkids over.
You want to have the kids over. You want to have the grandkids over. You want to have the family over. You want to say, this is my place.
Great people. Different people, that's for sure. And all of them had different reasons for getting a reverse mortgage. But you know what? They all felt the same about two things. They all loved their home, and they all wanted to stay in that home.
If you're 62 or older and own your home, find out how you could access your home's equity to give you cash now and when you need it in the future. A reverse mortgage could put more money in your pocket by eliminating your monthly mortgage payments. It could also pay off higher interest credit cards, medical costs, and give you some extra cash to help your retirement lifestyle.
I don't have any anxiety about money anymore. It allowed me to live in my home and not have to pay payments.
A whole lot of families have gotten tax-free cash from a reverse mortgage loan for a better retirement.
I don't have to worry about a mortgage payment every month.
It's a good thing.
Call right now to receive your free no-obligation info kit. The kit will show you how you may get the cash you need using your home's equity as a reverse mortgage from AAG. Call 800-771-8082.
Look, why don't you call AAG and find out what a reverse mortgage can mean for you.
Call AAG, the country's #1 reverse mortgage lender. Call 800-771-8082. That's 800-771-8082.
This is Sydney.
Hello.
Look at the space between your head and your shoulder. It's a square. The ancient Egyptians knew this. Pharaohs used this headrest. They offered great support, but were they comfortable? The PillowCube was made to fill that shoulder gap, optimized for support, comfort, and cooling. Buy the PillowCube today.
Window Wear Project helped me find the strength to go further than I ever thought possible.
I was able to come out of my shell and really connect with others.
So I can feel like part of a team, part of the community again.
It's possible to live better.
It's possible to have a voice and to be heard.
To feel understood.
To find peace.
Because I've experienced firsthand that anything is possible.
Sunday nights on In Real Life, Scripps News journalists take you off the grid.
We were just a bunch of kids with a camera.
And to the heart of the story. In Real Life, Sunday at 8/7 Central, only on Scripps News.
Welcome back to Scripps News Live. Doctors are making waves in finding a treatment to help restore eyesight in the blind. A recently published study shows doctors using a stem cell transplant on an Alabama man. They took a small biopsy from a healthy eye, grew it, and then transplanted the cells into an injured eye. The man was blind in his left eye after a chemical burn, and now his vision is clear enough to drive. Health officials sounding the alarm on the dangers of a flesh-eating bacteria has led to recent deaths in Florida, New York, and Connecticut. Scripps News correspondent Maura Siriani has more on the bacteria and where it's been found.
Doctors are warning this flesh-eating bacteria thrives in heat, specifically warm, salty water, which could be made worse by the upcoming hurricane season. So this bacteria is called Vibrio vulnificus. It is most often found in water where rivers and oceans meet. Experts say it can enter the body through a cut, scrape, wound, or by eating raw or undercooked seafood. That's because the bacteria lives and thrives in the intestines of shellfish and oysters. Experts say the most severe infections are rare. You may just experience nausea or vomiting. Of the roughly 80,000 cases reported annually, 100 are fatal. That's according to the CDC. Now in Florida, so far this year, the State Department of Health reports 26 confirmed cases since January and say the bacteria is responsible for killing 5 people in the Tampa Bay area. In the Northeast, 4 people have died from the infection this year. 1 person in Connecticut and another person in New York died after contracting the bacteria after swimming in different locations on the Long Island Sound, while another person in Connecticut died after eating raw oysters. The cause of the 4th infection, though, detected on Long Island has not yet been released. And experts say if you have a wound, go ahead and wait till it's healed before getting in the water. If you get a cut while swimming, they say you need to get out immediately and wash it with antibacterial soap and water. Maura Siriani, Scripps News.
All right, Maura, thank you for that. The CDC saying that small pet turtles have been causing a multi-state salmonella outbreak. The agency reporting at least 26 cases across 11 states. 9 people have had to go to the hospital. Health officials are advising everyone to avoid getting too close to the animals. The CDC is also advising pet owners wash their hands immediately after handling or feeding their turtles. And we will be right back.
Hi, I'm Kirk Kaiser, and did you know the average funeral costs around $10,000? And if you don't have enough insurance to cover funeral costs, credit card debt, and other expenses, your family is going to get stuck with the bill. Don't let that happen. Call right now. And if you're over 50, you can get up to $30,000 in affordable life insurance, and your acceptance is guaranteed. That's right. If you're over 50, you can't be turned down for this insurance, regardless of your health. Plus, there's no medical exam and no health questions. Your rate will never go up. Your coverage will never go down. And rates start as low as $5 a week. Your coverage begins as soon as your application is received. Don't wait until it's too late.
Just call 800-760-7793.
Coverage is guaranteed regardless of your health and cannot be canceled without your approval. Don't leave your family with a huge bill for your funeral. With one fast and easy call, get up to $30,000 in affordable life insurance to help cover funeral expenses and credit card debt, and maybe even leave something for your kids and your grandkids. Remember, if you're over 50, you can't be turned down, regardless of your health. There's no medical exam and no health questions. Best of all, your rates start as low as $5 a week, and your rate will never increase. Nothing is more important than family. So don't leave them with a lot of bills to pay when you're gone. Don't leave your family with a lot of bills to pay for your funeral. Call right now. Acceptance is guaranteed. Call right now.
Call now. Call 800-760-7793. That's 800-760-7793.
Hey.
Hey, I'm inside the bank. Where's the $500?
What?
I don't have much time. Where's the $500?
I said drop your bank, not rob your bank.
What?
I said drop your bank and get Dave. The banking app.
Yeah, I thought this was a lot of work for $500.
You think?
I mean, I would love it if you could come get me.
Oh, no. Oh, she going to jail.
Hello?
There's an easier way you can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less when you download Dave.
How can a photo become a vibrant part of your home? When you go to tryfracture.com and print your images directly on glass. Get beautiful depth and clarity on a sleek frameless print that's easy to hang and looks incredible in any space. Go to tryfracture.com now to save 20% on glass prints.
I'm Jason Bellini in Ukraine, reporting for Scripps News.
In a war half a world away,
You learn pretty fast when you need to survive.
there are stories you will never forget. Stay with Scripps News.
Welcome back to Scripps News Live. There was a special moment in the Little League World Series in Williamsport, Pennsylvania last weekend. Big leaguers came to town and they got to act like the kids for a day. The Washington Nationals and Philadelphia Phillies playing a game on the same field where the Little League games take place. And afterward, the teams switched. Little leaguers from Pennsylvania and Rhode Island got to play each other, while the major leaguers got to watch from the stands. They probably really appreciated a break. A senior citizen in Michigan is on a mission right now to inspire people of all ages to be more physically active. And he told Faraz Javed with Scripps News Detroit that it is his way of honoring a dear friend's memory.
Yeah, that's me. A 30-something being beaten by this 70-year-old. Northville resident Charlie Syracusa.
Do you enjoy beating people younger than you?
I do. I really, and oftentimes it's very true, because oftentimes they won't ask because they know that I'm older, so I wait till the end, especially if it's a victory, and say, yeah, I'll be 71 in October.
Over the years, Charlie has won several medals for his tennis. His most recent accolade includes competing at this year's National Senior Games in Pittsburgh.
Was that your first time?
No, I actually qualified in 2011 to go to Houston.
Okay.
And then last year I qualified to go to Florida.
But Charlie wasn't always good at tennis. In 1985, after suffering a hip injury from running marathons, Charlie was advised to take up tennis as a form of cross-training. Charlie credits his progress and success in tennis to his coach turned dear friend, Charlie Casper, who was a firefighter in New York City.
Unfortunately, he passed during the 9/11 attacks. He was a battalion chief. And when I called his wife after we found out that Charlie had perished, and I said, Lorraine, what can I do for you? And she said, find people in Michigan and teach them the joy of tennis that Charlie taught you so that his spirit continues to live on.
Since then, Charlie has dedicated all matches to the memory of his friend while motivating others to lead an active lifestyle.
Every time you step on a tennis court, you think of Charlie?
Always. And again, even now it becomes emotional because had that intersection not happened, we're probably not talking today.
Now from swimming to cycling to yoga and even running, Charlie has a fitness schedule that may seem impossible for the faint-hearted, but says everyone can do it, even seniors, if done under professional supervision.
What would your message be for folks in a similar age bracket?
Go for a walk. Watch some YouTube videos about yoga. Do meditation. Be kind to yourself. If anybody takes 100 hours a year, which is 18 minutes a day, and puts any effort into that area that they want to improve upon, you'll be better than 95% of the people in that activity in the world.
Reporting on embracing fitness regardless of age, I'm Faraz Javed.
Well, for many Americans, the COVID pandemic is a thing of the past, especially since the national COVID emergency officially ended in May. But for many others, the illness is still very real. As of last Friday, the CDC says more than 10,000 people had been admitted to hospitals, and that is up more than 14% from the week before. And there were 453 deaths during the same time period. So COVID may not be the threat it once was, but it is yet again on the rise.
WHO continues to assess the risk of COVID-19 to global public as high. The virus continues to circulate in all countries, continues to kill, and it continues to change. The risk remains of a more dangerous variant emerging that could cause a sudden increase in cases and deaths.
Joining me now live is Dr. William Schaffner. He is the CDC advisor and professor of medicine at Vanderbilt Medical Center's Division of Infectious Diseases. Dr. Schaffner, always great to see you. Thank you so much for your time today. As we head into our fourth fall season now dealing with COVID, we're hearing about another variant on the horizon. So it's obvious here that this virus continues to evolve. How much of a concern is this newest strain?
I don't think it's much of a concern, Veronica, fortunately. And the reason for that is all of these new variants, yes, the virus continues to mutate, are in children or great-grandchildren of Omicron, still part of the same family. And that means that the new booster that we anticipate will be available September, October, should still protect us against serious disease caused by these new variants from time to time continue to crop up. So far, so good. Fingers crossed.
Now, Doctor, I'm here in Atlanta, and it seems like cases here are on the rise right now. So we know that official guidelines for COVID have ended. They ended back in May. How should we be thinking about dealing with COVID now, especially in terms of masking and vaccines?
Well, all of the people who are in high-risk groups, older people, people with underlying chronic illnesses, those who are immune compromised, and people who are pregnant, get out your mask if you're going indoors, if you're traveling, if you're in crowds, that extra layer of precaution, and be very determined that once the booster becomes available, take advantage of it.
Well, tell us more about this booster. I mean, what do we know about vaccines, boosters as we head into the fall? Because we know that government funding has run out, Doctor. So where do people now get tested? Where do they find the vaccines? Because I would imagine there are still a lot of people out there who don't have health insurance, and they were relying on these drive-through clinics or these pop-up clinics, if you will.
Well, that will be something of a challenge. We want to continue to have this vaccine available to absolutely everyone for whom it's recommended come the fall. And there will be programs in place such that people who are underinsured or have no insurance can still avail themselves of the vaccine. For example, in public health clinics and the like. And that's the sort of thing that will be announced locally through your local TV stations, your local newspapers. So stay alert. It's very, very important. Don't want disparity once again to creep into this problem, because people who are disadvantaged are in racial, ethnic, linguistic minorities, people who are rural. We want them to continue to have access to the vaccine.
And Doctor, in terms of mitigation, we were talking about the elderly and the very young, infants, for example. How risky are crowded places for them, like in terms of schools, concerts, sporting events? Should they be wary of congregating indoors or being in large crowds? Should we all be wary of congregating?
Well, those of us who are especially concerned, we're more personally vulnerable to getting serious disease. I think a measure of caution is appropriate. Get that mask out and think twice before you go to that concert. You really want to do this, for example, 72 years old and have diabetes. A bit of caution at the present time is worth a lot, I think.
All right, Dr. William Schaffner, professor of medicine at Vanderbilt University. Dr. Schaffner, always good to see you. Thank you so much for stopping by. Well, Spain has won the Women's World Cup for the first time in history, stealing victory from England, who beat one of the host nations, Australia, earlier in the week. Stuart Smith joined supporters of the Lionesses in South London on Sunday.
England went into this game as the underdogs, and in the end Spain did win, with a goal in the 29th minute giving them an early head start, which in the end took them all the way to the final whistle. There were opportunities for England to equalise, but in the end they never managed to convert those into goals. I spoke to a few of their supporters after the game.
Disappointed, super sad, but like I said, they did such a good job, so I'm very happy how far we made it.
I mean, I'm happy that we got to the final. I feel like, especially after winning the Euros, for like young women in England, the landscape of football has changed 100%.
And keeping their heads down in one corner, a couple of Spanish fans.
Cheers for that. Cheers for that, mate.
So not the win England was hoping for, but for Spain a huge achievement. Its women's team lifting the World Cup trophy for the first time in history. Stuart Smith, Scripps News, London.
Speaking of soccer, Lionel Messi may have just joined the Inter Miami Soccer Club, but his addition is already paying off.
In round 11.
Look at that. Inter Miami and Nashville SC tied at 1 when regulation ended in the League Cup final Saturday. But Inter Miami was able to win after a penalty kick shootout. Messi scoring early in regulation to help Inter Miami win its first championship since joining the league back in 2020. Congratulations. Thank you so much for watching Scripps News Live. I'm Veronica Dela Cruz. For the audience leaving us right now, your local programming is up next. Remember, you can always check us out online at scripsnews.com. Now, if you're staying with us, we have much more news headed your way right here on Scripps News Live.
I was having problems with my legs and my feet.
I suffered a lot of cramps, swelling.
I would dread going up and down steps.
Tingling in my legs due to circulation issues.
The aches and pains have just continued to increase.
Did you know if you have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, or are over 40, your leg aches and pains could be from poor circulation? Revitive can help reduce leg aches and pains, swelling, and cramps. Revitive uses breakthrough technology to get your calf muscles pumping like a second heart to increase blood flow, reducing leg aches and pains, cramps, or swollen feet and ankles.
Plus, it's drug-free.
The cramping was terrible, and I don't get that anymore. Thank you, Revitive.
Revitive is FDA cleared and clinically proven to increase oxygen-rich blood flow during use. The smart stimulation works so well, over 3 million people use Revitive.
As a firefighter, I'm constantly on my feet. I wish I had known about Revitive a lot earlier. It would have made a huge difference in really who I am today.
Revitive has given me a better quality of life because I am living without pain.
Revitive reduces leg pains 2 times more than exercise alone in just 6 weeks.
We want to take walks. We want to do more social activities, just the typical things in life that I did not feel well enough before Revitive that I was able to do.
Now, Revitive is regenerizing my legs and making me feel like, let's do more.
Go to Revitive.com now to learn how Revitive can help reduce leg aches and pains, swelling, and cramps.
The doctor said go for it, and I'm in the best shape in terms of my legs and my ankles and my feet than I've ever been.
Try Revitive. You will see the difference. It works. It worked for me.
Get the most out of life with Revitive. Visit Revitive.com. That's REVITIVE.com. Or call
1-800-317-6641. That's 1-800-317-6641 today. Or visit Revitive.com. Order now.
Hey there, thank you so much for joining us on this Monday. Good to see you today. I'm Veronica De La Cruz. Welcome to Scripps News Live. So we begin this hour with the latest developments on the West Coast. Hilary, now a post-tropical cyclone, but it packed a punch as it battered parts of California with powerful winds and dangerous flooding. The storm leaving almost 60,000 people across Southern California in the dark. 911 service still out in Palm Springs. The mayor says there is no way in or out of the city.
We're all stuck. Our major freeway, the I-10, is also closed in both directions. So this is a very extreme situation at the moment. And our officers are reporting that things are moving quite well, despite the fact that our roads are closed. Residents have really been heeding our advice to stay home and stay off the roads.
At least 2 other cities near Palm Springs were also suffering 911 system outages. Despite the outages, people can still reach 911 by sending a text message. Hilary is the first tropical storm to hit Southern California in 84 years. Hilary's remnants are now moving through Nevada. Clark County, where Las Vegas is located, declared a state of emergency yesterday due to the potential for strong winds and a lot of rain. Rachel Moore with Scripps News Las Vegas takes a closer look at the conditions.
Here in Las Vegas, we are under a flood watch through most of the day. We've already seen severe flooding in neighborhoods across the valley, as well as on our Las Vegas Strip. Some areas getting nearly 1.5 inches of rain. And just to give you some perspective of how much rain that is, the rain that we're getting today and over the weekend is the amount of rain that we would usually see in an entire year. And that's why a lot of folks have been coming to this parking lot that I'm standing in this morning. Las Vegas Fire and Rescue, they have put out a pile of dirt and a bunch of sandbags for homeowners to fill up and protect their homes. In neighborhoods, we've seen floodwaters so high sidewalks are disappearing. The tires of cars are covered. And even in our mountain area, residents are now under a boil water notice because of heavy rain and high winds. Overnight flooding in Kyle Canyon damaging their water system. It's leaking right now. And we're also getting notice of power outages across the Las Vegas Valley. More than 1,000 homes have lost electricity, and right now crews are working to restore the power in several neighborhoods. Our meteorologist Justin Bruce is forecasting the rain to be on and off today. Again, we are under that flood watch until 5 o'clock this evening. Reporting in Las Vegas, I'm Rachel Moore.
President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden en route to Maui for a first-hand look at the devastation from those wildfires. The Bidens left Reno, Nevada shortly before noon. FEMA Administrator Deanna Criswell has been traveling with them. While in Maui, they're going to meet with survivors who call the historic town of Lahaina home. Republicans criticizing the Biden administration over its response to the Hawaii wildfires. Now, this tragedy is the latest chapter in a decades-long fight to get Hawaii more federal attention and resources for wildfire prevention. National correspondent Amber Strong takes a closer look at the challenges that left Hawaii less prepared and how the U.S. prioritizes its resources between states and territories.
The Hawaii wildfires are officially the state's deadliest natural disaster.
People are found in houses in a huddle, holding each other because the fire surrounded their homes before they could even get out. There was nowhere to go.
I can't believe it, Pete. This is like a war zone. Oh my gosh.
I've ordered all available federal assets on the island, including the U.S. Coast Guard, the Navy 3rd Fleet, and the U.S. Army to assist local emergency response crews.
With locals still searching through wreckage and trying to locate loved ones, many are asking, how did the damage get so bad? And was there anything that could be done to stop it? Many aspects came together to make the perfect storm for the fire.
That's the challenging piece. So there's really no blaming anyone. You know, this was the worst possible recipe, and we are a fire-prone state. We have very challenging topography, steep slopes, rocky slopes, no easy ways to access, no water on the landscape like pressurized water, etc., because of the geography of it.
While developed communities on the islands had easier access to roads and fire hydrants, the areas are surrounded by thousands of acres of natural wildlands. Much of those wildlands, more than 26% of the state itself, is now dominated by invasive grass species that have rapidly grown over the last few decades as agricultural productions have left the state. The grasses are particularly dry and prone to fires. Wildfires are actually fairly common across the state, but since they've remained mostly in underdeveloped areas, they haven't caught much attention. And recent developments like the invasive grass have left many locals unaware of the growing threat.
Even locally, because our wildfire issue has increased so much over the last few decades that a lot of people, when they first bought their home or first grew up in an area, it wasn't surrounded by these fire-prone fuels. So the fire risk has grown in around unprepared communities.
But researchers, public safety advocates, and organizations like Hawaii Wildfire Management have been sounding the alarm for years, calling for increased resources and funding to expand community programs, education, and better management of natural resources. In a 2020 report, one consulting firm found that the region where the town of Lahaina is located to be as high risk, warning, quote, wildfire events will continue to be an ongoing occurrence in Maui County.
I mean, the hard part is, I wrote the West Maui Community Wildfire Protection Plan, and I'm crying at night because we knew, and there are a lot of projects that collectively all of our partners and ourselves have gotten done, and that's to be celebrated, but it wasn't enough. And a huge part of it is we couldn't find the money to get those things done.
Federal agencies have been criticized by locals in the aftermath of the fires for a slow response. The Washington Post reported on large local operations led by Native Hawaiians in particular to deliver supplies between islands and open shelters. But amid the climate of cooperation on the islands, the Post reported frustrations for the lack of official presence. Federal government officials have noted they've prioritized fighting the fires, housing survivors in evacuation centers, restoring utilities, and more. FEMA has faced other criticisms for its response to natural disasters on U.S. islands and territories. For example, a 2018 internal report found a number of significant failures and chaos in FEMA's response to the damage done in Puerto Rico from Hurricane Maria. Federal neglect has been a persisting issue for wildfire safety advocates on Hawaii, who say it has been a struggle to get attention to growing threats, lack of infrastructure, and necessary resources. The need for a massive expansion of wildfire prevention efforts goes beyond raising awareness for federal agencies for funding. Hawaii faces an unusual obstacle since most of its land is privately owned. Less than a third is federal land. That's a contrast compared to other states like California, where 57% of its forests are federally owned. But there's still a large gap in awareness for private landowners for wildfire safety protocols and prevention techniques. Representative Jill Takuda told CBS's Face the Nation that the state's digital alarm system did not go off in the emergency, but pointed out that the bigger problem is whether citizens would have known what it means.
You would not know what the crisis was. You might think it's a tsunami, by the way, which is our first instinct. You would run towards land, which in this case would be towards fire.
The best time for landscape management, infrastructure building, and awareness campaigns is before disaster strikes. Unfortunately, with the Maui wildfires, disaster may have to be the inspiration to better prepare for future catastrophe.
It always could have come into communities, and we've been doing everything we can to keep our story. Well, let's keep it that way. A lot of the complaints we get are, this doesn't really apply to me. You're using mainland photos to show us what could happen to a community. And I would have preferred to have kept it that way.
Amber Strong, Scripps News.
The road to recovery in Maui is sure to take years. Monetary donations will be crucial for survivors struggling to piece their lives back together again. Scripps News is supporting those relief efforts through the Scripps Maui Wildfire Relief Campaign. Now, if you are interested in helping, all you have to do is scan the QR code that you see right there on your screen, and no amount is too small. Coming up on Scripps News Live, the deadline for former President Trump and 18 of his allies to surrender in Georgia fast approaching right now. We have the details on what we can expect. Also, the first Republican debate kicking off this week, but one big name candidate is choosing not to attend. We'll have the details. And don't forget, you can count on Scripps News for all of your news throughout the primetime hours as well, beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern. We will be right back.
Why didn't I try medication sooner?
I guess I thought my anxiety would just go away.
Hers changed everything.
They connected me with a provider who got where I was coming from.
Now, I finally feel like myself again.
Get started today at forhers.com.
When a cyber thief transfers the title of your home out of your name, it's a race against time to stop the theft of your hard-earned equity.
Many people don't know this has happened until long after it's done.
You as the homeowner think you still own a house. 3 months later, you start getting foreclosure notices and you realize you've got 4 mortgages on your house that you didn't even know existed.
So when's the last time you checked on the title to your home? Find out if you're already a victim at HomeTitleLock.com.
There's a new victim of identity theft every 3 seconds. Checking your credit score or bank statements may not be enough to alert you. That's because identity threats appear in more places than you realize, making it dangerously easy to become a victim.
Someone got my social security number, made a driver's license, and tried to buy a car in my name. Felt really devastating, frightened, because I had no control.
Identity thieves can use your information to open loans, transfer home titles, even commit crimes.
Someone used my information to open up bank accounts in my name. It was terrifying, not knowing what was out there and what had been opened.
But protecting your identity can be easy with LifeLock, a leader in identity theft protection. LifeLock monitors for threats to your identity, especially ones you may miss by simply checking your accounts or credit. If there's an issue, LifeLock will alert you.
There was a big yes button and there was a big no button. So I clicked, that's not me, and LifeLock took it from there.
And if you're a victim, your dedicated U.S.-based restoration specialist will work to fix it.
If something happens, you have somebody fighting for you. I don't know what I would have done without my restoration specialist.
All plans backed by LifeLock's $1 million protection package, including reimbursement for stolen funds, personal expenses, and coverage for lawyers and experts if needed.
With the $1 million protection package, I know LifeLock has me covered.
It can be dangerously easy to steal your identity, but now it's easy to help protect yourself.
I realized identity theft can happen to anybody, so that's why I signed up for LifeLock.
Join the millions of people already protected by LifeLock, and for a limited time, save 25% with promo code 25 today. LifeLock, identity theft protection starts here. Call 800-301-9328 or visit lifelock.com/25 today and use promo code 25 today to save 25% on your first year of identity theft protection. Enroll now.
Get customizable furniture at joybird.com that complements your art, your green thumb, or just you. Save up to 40% off select bestsellers. Plus, get free design services at joybird.com.
Welcome back to Scripps News Live. Former President Trump and 18 of his allies have until noon on Friday to turn themselves in at the Fulton County, Georgia jail. A Georgia grand jury voting to indict the 19 people on state charges for attempting to overturn the 2020 election. Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis says that she is hoping for an arraignment hearing in the first week of September and then a trial in March of 2024. Avajoy Burnett has been tracking all the cases against former President Trump for us. She joins us now from Atlanta live. Good to see you, Avajoy. Always nice to see you here in Atlanta. So we know that all these co-defendants now have a little less than 96 hours to turn themselves in. And there have been a lot of questions around this booking process. Will they be fingerprinted? Will there be a mugshot? Do you know at this point what the process is going to look like?
Well, Veronica, right now all eyes are on that Rice Street facility not too far away from us here in Atlanta.
this is where all of those 19 co-defendants, including the former president, will show up for this booking process. And so what this actually includes is fingerprinting, mugshots, and this also includes a mugshot for the former president. The sheriff here in Fulton County has said that this will happen. We know that this hasn't happened for the other jurisdictions in which the former president has been indicted. And if you're wondering, what is the purpose of a booking process? This is a question that I've been asking some legal experts, and it's for the ability for officials to be able to recognize all of these people. They need a record of everyone who's been charged in this indictment just about a week ago. So that is the process. Everyone is watching and waiting. We're just under that 96-hour mark now to figure out when all of these people will be going in for that initial process. All of the people here you see on the screen, Veronica.
Yeah. 19 defendants. It really is something. So, Avajoy, what do we know right now about the timeline as to when the former president will be turning himself in? Will it be on Friday?
You know, that has been the big question. Since the indictment came out last week, Monday, everyone wanted to kind of look towards the next step. That's what we did in Miami. That's what we did in Washington, D.C. when he was indicted in those cases. So now we're watching and waiting. But keep in mind that this is a very big week for the Republican Party. This week on Wednesday in Milwaukee, all of those presidential contenders will be in Milwaukee for their first debate, except for the former president, Donald Trump. He posted on social media yesterday that he will not be there. So Wednesday is kind of out of the question because many analysts think he will be looking to see what happens there. So there's a possibility that he will be turning himself in towards the latter part of the week. But Veronica, we still have to wait to see what actually happens when he's going to do it. All eyes will be on his social media to see when this happens.
Absolutely. Watching and waiting. That is the game. Avajoy Burnett reporting live for us here in Atlanta. Great to see you, Avajoy. Thanks so much. So the former president is now facing 91 charges in 4 separate cases, but still has a commanding lead in the latest polls, which could be why he says that he's skipping the first Republican presidential debate on Wednesday. There will still be several heavy hitters hoping to convince voters that they are the best candidate for the job, including Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, former Vice President Mike Pence, and Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina. Congressional correspondent Nate Reed joining us now live from Washington. So, Nate, what do we know right now? Is Trump definitely skipping this debate?
He is skipping this debate. And first of all, I want to point out the former president's poll numbers. He has a commanding lead. There are definitely some big names who are going to be on the stage on Wednesday. But at the same time, if you look at those poll numbers, 62% in the most recent CBS YouGov poll showing that they would vote for former President Trump. That's a poll that was conducted August 16th through 18th, so well after all of these indictments have come out. 62% of Republican primary voters saying that they would still support the former president. Just 16%, numbers holding roughly steady there, say they'd support Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor. Pretty much everyone else in the Republican primary field polling in the single digits. So this will be an opportunity for members of that primary field, except for President Trump, to go after, if you will, Ron DeSantis. They're going to want to attack that lead, given that he is in second place. The former president, though, putting in a statement on his social media platform, Truth Social, that the results of that most recent poll are a large part of why he's not participating in the debate. He said, quote, "A new CBS poll just out has me leading the field by, quote, legendary numbers. The public knows who I am and what a successful presidency I had. I will therefore not be doing the debates." Again, not exactly clear how many debates he'll not be doing, but he will not be at this first debate on Wednesday. He already has counter-programming scheduled, a possible interview with former Fox host Tucker Carlson, who now hosts a show on X, the site formerly known as Twitter, is likely going to be where he will have a more friendly audience on Wednesday, while the rest of the Republican primary candidates will be on stage, at least those of them who've qualified in Milwaukee.
And Nate, tell us more about that qualification process, because we know that the only way to participate is to qualify. Who has qualified at this point, and what was the process all about?
Well, the RNC isn't exactly giving us a lineup of who has made the stage. They told us what the qualification, what you need to qualify for the debate. But at the same time, we have somewhat of a sense of who's going to be on that stage. It's going to include Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, former Vice President Mike Pence, Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, Chris Christie, and Doug Burnham. Those are people who've qualified. Now, several other candidates have said that they've qualified, but we're not exactly sure if they'll be on the stage. Those include Asa Hutchinson, the former governor of Arkansas, Perry Johnson, a businessman, and Miami Mayor Francisco Suarez. Now, in order to qualify, there were multiple steps laid out by the RNC regarding donors and polling numbers. Let's go through those now. They needed to poll at least 1% in multiple national or some state regional polls. They need to have at least 40,000 unique donors and at least 200 donors per state in over 20 states. They need to sign a pledge to participate in only RNC-sanctioned debates and sign another pledge to support the eventual nominee. That last pledge has been somewhat of a difficult one for a number of these Republican candidates to take. Chris Christie had previously said he wasn't going to sign it. He has since signed it. But many of these candidates who don't want to see former President Trump become the nominee in 2024 have made very clear that they don't like the fact that they have to sign a loyalty pledge to the eventual nominee, especially given those recent numbers we just saw over where the former president's polling. 62% in that latest CBS News YouGov poll of Republican primary voters saying they'd back former President Trump.
All right, Nathaniel Reed reporting live from Washington. Nate, we'll be watching this. Thank you. One of former President Jimmy Carter's grandson says that his grandfather has entered, quote, his final chapter. Josh Carter, recently speaking with People magazine, the 98-year-old former president began hospice care in February. He beat brain cancer in 2015 and had brain surgery in 2019. His wife, Rosalind, diagnosed with dementia earlier this year. Her grandson says that she is aware of her condition. The Carters have been married for 77 years. Coming up next on Scripps News Live, Americans turning to credit repair companies for help. They aren't getting the improvements that they were once promised.
These companies are supposed to be following federal regulations, and a lot of them are slipping under the radar.
Coming up next, we explore why and what you should do if you are looking to improve your credit score.
If you're living with diabetes, this is the sound that could change your life.
Great news for people living with diabetes. Now you can wear a continuous glucose monitor and eliminate routine finger sticks. The days of repeated, painful finger sticks are over.
Call 800-820-9953.
If you use insulin daily to manage your condition, a continuous glucose monitor could help you control your diabetes and reduce or eliminate those painful finger sticks. If you have Medicare or private insurance, US Med can deliver a CGM system right to your door. And if you qualify, there may be little or no cost to you. Shipping is free, and we'll even bill your insurer directly. Call now to get your continuous glucose monitoring system so you can take control of your diabetes and get back to enjoying life.
Call 800-820-9953. That's 800-820-9953.
We're back. Jesse, for $500. Let's find out. Can you take it? You're gonna want this.
What?
Start the clock and go. Hair from the drain. My drain. That rap song you recorded in secret. Yikes. Ooh, salmon. We heard you're allergic.
I can't take it.
Oh, Mimi, you ready? No.
There's an easier way you can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less when you download Dave.
Wounded Warrior Project has been with me every step of my journey.
Aaron, how you doing, bud?
With experiences that help me realize that I'm not alone.
And specialized programs that give me the tools to train my body and mind.
Now, it's possible for me to get back out there.
To get out of my comfort zone and try new things.
To build and be part of a community that supports other warriors.
It's possible to get the help I need for me and my family.
I got my confidence back. I'm setting goals and I'm achieving them.
It's possible to feel understood, whether it's day one or 20 years down the road, they've got your back.
And as each warrior's needs evolve, Wounded Warrior Project is adapting to meet them.
Because when we pull together,
it's possible to go further than you ever imagined.
There's a better way to begin your mornings.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Morning Rush. Thanks so much for being with us.
Context and conversation.
This next story, we were talking about this earlier today.
Get the stories that will shape each day.
Here with us now is meteorologist Scott Withers. We got just wave after wave after wave.
So you can get on with yours.
Make sure you stay with us as we monitor this developing story.
Morning Rush. Weekday mornings starting at 7, 6 Central. Only on Scripps News.
Quick note right here, we would always love to hear from you. Give us a call on our Scripps News viewer hotline. That number is on your screen right now. You can call us toll free. It's 1-833-4-SCRIPPS. Again, it's 1-833-472-7477. Feel free to share your comments and your story ideas. Wall Street is trying to bounce back from last week's down week. Taking a look at the boards right now, we've got some red on the board. The Dow Jones slipping nearly 100 points. The S&P is up, however. So we've got some mixed markets. S&P gaining 13 points. The Nasdaq gaining more than 100 points. The Nasdaq is up 143 points at this hour. We're going to keep an eye on it for you. So there is no shortage of companies out there that guarantee that they can reduce your debt or maybe improve your credit score. A recent Better Business Bureau study finds that many of them can't deliver on those big promises. Marissa Oberle with Scripps News Grand Rapids explains what you need to know in order to protect yourself.
Downright fraud. It's the phrase a Michigan woman used to describe her experience with a debt settlement company in a new Better Business Bureau study released on Thursday, which examined the effectiveness of services offered to people that struggle to pay back the money they owe.
These companies are supposed to be following federal regulations, and a lot of them are slipping under the radar.
Katie Grievous works for the organization's chapter in West Michigan. She explains debt relief and credit repair businesses often advertise quick and extensive fixes for low scores or past due bills. But the BBB's analysis revealed a much more limited ability to enact change than implied. Additionally, the fees requested by those programs frequently cost consumers thousands of dollars and leave them worse off. For example, that Michigan woman cited in the study negotiated a contract to pay just over $27,000 of her father's debt. But when the balance reached a few $100s 5 years later, she realized only $5,700 went to the creditors. The settlement company got the rest.
We found that there are a lot of companies that are legitimate businesses that are taking advantage of consumers, on top of scammers taking advantage of the lack of knowledge when it comes to what consumers' rights are and what debt relief and credit repair actually entails.
The BBB says nationwide it's received 12,700 complaints and negative reviews about the industry since 2020. The organization wants more state and federal oversight of the issue. Grievous notes people can negotiate themselves, but it takes time and effort. She stresses people understand that or suggests they seek out highly rated debt relief and credit repair businesses whose consultants provide easy to understand detailed information.
It's not just identifying the clear scams. It's these businesses that are legitimate businesses, but they're doing things the wrong way and making the industry worse, when really the point is to try to help people, help them get out of their debt, help them pay things off.
Well, this week, the Writers Guild is planning to meet again with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. Both sides are looking to end a strike that's lasted now for more than 3 months. Now, they met for talks again on Friday, the second time since writers hit the picket lines. Nothing came of the meeting. They're reportedly still far apart on major issues. But the Guild told members the negotiations are ongoing. With Hollywood's writers and actors both on strike right now, many TV and film productions have either been paused or scraped altogether. I'm Veronica Dela Cruz for the audience leaving us right now. Your local programming is up next. Don't forget you can always check us out on ScripsNews.com. And if you're staying with us, we have much more news headed your way right here on Scripps News Live. Coming up next, bipartisan legislation aiming to address food insecurity in Michigan.
Our kids don't care whether their plate is red or blue. They don't care what side of the aisle we're on. They just care that that plate's full.
We'll have the details on the approved budget expanding access to free meals in public schools. We'll be right back.
I have patients who think they've tried everything for their sweat. That's when I recommend Carpe. Carpe specializes in effective sweat solutions at an affordable price with products for the face, hands, underarms, and more.
It's honestly just completely changed my life.
Nothing worked for me until I found Carpe.
This makes my life so much less slippery.
I've personally seen the difference that Carpe can make.
Avoid expensive treatments, injections, and prescriptions. Your total body sweat solution is available at mycarpe.com. Visit today and get free shipping.
There's a new victim of identity theft every 3 seconds. And checking your credit score or bank statements may not be enough to alert you. That's because identity threats appear in more places than you realize. Identity thieves can use your information to open loans, transfer home titles, even commit crimes.
Someone stole my information and tried to buy a car in my name.
LifeLock monitors for threats to your identity, including ones you may miss, and alerts you if there's an issue. And if you're a victim, your dedicated U.S.-based restoration specialist will work to fix it.
If something happens, you have somebody fighting for you.
All plans backed by LifeLock's $1 Million Protection Package, including reimbursement for stolen funds.
I know LifeLock has me covered.
LifeLock, identity theft protection starts here. Call the number on your screen or visit lifelock.com/25now and use promo code 25now to save 25% on your first year of identity theft protection. Enroll now.
How does Klein Spector get among the most big verdicts and settlements of any law firm in the country? Because Klein Spector is an award-winning team with 5 doctor lawyers, the most of any firm in the United States. And that's why the New York Times calls Klein Spector a powerhouse law firm. So if a defective product, motor vehicle accident, or medical malpractice caused a catastrophic injury, call Klein Spector.
Hey there, welcome to Scripps News Live. Great to see you today. I'm Veronica Dela Cruz. Let's get you caught up on the day's top stories right now. Former President Trump says he doesn't expect he'll take part in any Republican presidential debates. He wrote on Truth Social, quote, "The public knows who I am and what a successful presidency I had. I will therefore not be doing the debates." Polls show Trump with a commanding lead over his opponents despite 4 sets of indictments. Remnants of what was Tropical Storm Hilary now moving out of California. The tropical storm's drenching rains causing flooding and mudslides. At one point, 59,000 people were without power. Nearly 3 inches of rain fell in Los Angeles yesterday, making it the city's rainiest summer day ever. The strongest wind gust was 84 miles an hour in San Diego County. And today, President Biden and the First Lady will get a close look at the devastating wildfire damage on Maui. They'll be touring what was once the historic town of Lahaina from the air and ground. The president pledging to help with Maui however he can. So the president and First Lady's visit comes nearly 2 weeks after the fires ravaged Maui. Scripps News congressional correspondent Stephanie Liebergan explains why it's important for presidents to take the time to visit after a tragedy.
From wildfires and hurricanes to mass shootings and terrorist attacks, Americans have come to expect a presidential visit when disaster strikes. And a look back through history shows it's a tradition that's been building for decades.
The president and the first lady will be traveling to Hawaii on Monday.
The purpose of a presidential visit is typically two-sided. Victims of a disaster are looking for comfort and empathy, but they also want to know what the government is doing to help.
Whether it's, a flood or an earthquake or these terrible fires that happened in Hawaii, it always involves the government. It always involves federal aid because very often the states can't handle it themselves.
The timing of a visit can make a big difference.
You can't wait too long. It looks like you don't care. You're not paying attention. But if you get in there right away, you're going to disrupt things.
President speaking at the site of tragedy goes all the way back to President Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. But as society and technology changed, so did the expectations. Communication became easier, travel became faster, and television put these moments on screen.
I think Lyndon Johnson is one of the first presidents to go to a disaster area after a hurricane, so that we now expect our presidents to do that.
Presidential visits can be turning points in an administration. Take President Bill Clinton after the Oklahoma City bombing, or President George W. Bush at Ground Zero. Disaster gives political leaders a chance to put partisanship aside.
When Superstorm Sandy ravages the East Coast, particularly the New Jersey area, What was really good for Obama and for Chris Christie, the Republican governor of New Jersey, was that the two came together.
But a misstep can haunt a presidency long after the administration is over.
Probably better not to go at all than to make a halfway measure, which is what George W. Bush did in flying over in Air Force One, flying over the ravages of Katrina. And that haunted him for the rest of his presidency.
The impact of a presidential visit extends internationally as well. It can be good for a U.S. president or even former president to visit another country when tragedy strikes there in order to demonstrate U.S. leadership among the free world. Stephanie Liebergen, Scripps News, Washington.
New York City's overcrowding situation with incoming migrants has long been at a breaking point. Over the weekend, the city began housing people again on Randall's Island. There's been temporary housing on Randall's Island since last fall, but the city has created new housing there and had to build more than it originally planned. National correspondent Axel Trosios is on Randall's Island, and he has the details for us. So, Axel, more housing looks like a very temporary fix. What can you tell us about the situation right now?
Veronica, so there are a total of 6 tents. Those tents will house single adults and married adults. The project was completely funded by the state of New York, and it will cost taxpayers more than $20 million a month. So the city says the tents have capacity for up to 3,000 people. Originally, the city said that the tents will have capacity for up to 2,000 people, but since the city have seen the influx of migrants nonstop here in New York, so they decided to expand the project and create more space to house more asylum seekers. So the city opened the tents this Sunday, and it took its first 150 men. And they are also saying that for transportation, the men will have access to buses provided by the city that will be able to transport them between Randall's Island, the island of Manhattan, and Queens for any of those who want to travel to these places to look for immigration assistance and guidance. So the first step when asylum seekers arrive in the tent facilities, they will be met at a medical intake center. Then they will be paired to a caseworker and then will be provided a dorm. But there's also strong opposition to the project, Veronica, and this is because the tents are built on soccer fields that are used for youth in the city. And this is people related to the mayor's office that said that taking these spaces away from the youth is basically putting their lives in danger, because they say that they use these spaces to keep these kids off the streets. So far, the city has received more than 100,000 asylum seekers since the spring of 2022, and the city's already still taking care of more than 58,000, almost 60,000, Veronica.
Wow. Axel Trosios with the very latest there on Randall's Island. Axel, thank you so much for the update. We appreciate it. So, free breakfast and lunch now available to all public school students in Michigan. The governor is signing a bill allocating $160 million to fund the meals for one school year. Ruta Olsenate with Scripps News Grand Rapids explains how state officials are making it all happen.
Ketchup and peanut butter, guys.
School lunches these days are no mystery meats or colorless plates.
Yellow and blue and red and pink.
Fruits from neighboring farms, fresh vegetables with peanut butter, and a crowd pleaser, mini corn dogs.
You want corn dogs? Go ahead and take them, honey.
Later, elementary school second grader Chanel Todd sat me down to explain the perfect technique on how to eat the school favorite.
I don't really like the crust. I just like the meat. I just taking the meat out.
Chanel says this is the only way to enjoy the cornbread-covered delicacy, no matter how messy.
And then I would just roll it around and then just pick it up. Okay, that was hard.
And you know what's better for Chanel than corn dogs for lunch? Free corn dogs for lunch for the entire school year.
No way!
Governor Whitmer signed the bipartisan education budget in July of this year. It allocates $160 million from the state budget to provide all of Michigan's 1.4 million public school students free breakfast and free lunch at school. That's enough to cover free meals for a single school year.
It's going to be a game changer for our district.
Paw Paw Public Schools Food Service Director Corey Perkins says when students had to pay for their own lunches again after COVID-19 incentives expired, they stopped buying lunch altogether.
We ended up dropping about 50% in participation last year when the kids had to pay.
According to Feeding America, 1 in 8 children in the state of Michigan are food insecure. That's just over 282,000 children with no food guaranteed at the table.
Some estimates go all the way up to the 552,000 mark, which makes the problem all the more jarring.
How are they supposed to learn when all they're worried about is the rumbling in their stomach,
Kids Food Basket in West Michigan provides free meals to children who need it most. President and CEO Bridget Whitney says now that students can eat 2 meals a day for free at school, their services and resources will be able to expand.
So over the past 3.5 years in particular, we've experienced more need coming into Kids Food Basket than ever in our 21 years of serving the West Michigan community.
So how is the state able to afford this? We asked Governor Whitmer and other state representatives who say Michigan was able to put more money into a rainy day fund after COVID-19 and use it for things they deem necessary. And this was top of their list.
This is a $160 million investment, and 60 of it is one time. So we'll have to work next year to make sure that we can continue to support this expansion.
But no matter how this shook up at the state level, Corey says the final product is all that families care about.
Our kids don't care whether their plate is red or blue. They don't care what side of the aisle we're on. They just care that that plate's full.
Meanwhile, Chanel only has to worry about how she's gonna clean up after a long lunch period of teaching everyone the proper way of eating.
Put the ball over my hand.
I'm Rudolph Sinaida for Scripps News.
In money news at this hour, the Federal Reserve is keeping close track of savings that we're able to sock away during the pandemic, and it expects us to exhaust that money by the end of next month. The Fed is saying that Americans saved up to more than $2 trillion, and then people began withdrawing that money in 2022 at, get this, a rate of about $100 billion a month. New numbers out suggest the average working woman's pay is now getting closer to a man's salary. They say women's median workday earnings were 84% of men's, and that is the narrowest pay gap ever. Our Megan Lopez takes a closer look at the numbers for us.
The pay gap between women and men in the U.S. is now at an all-time low. That's according to new data out from the U.S. Labor Department. Women now make 84.5 cents for every dollar men earn. That's up 2 cents from last year. Part of the reason for that closing gap is better education, but also the career fields women are now entering at a higher rate, like STEM fields. But while that news may sound promising, Rakesh Kocher from the Pew Research Center says the gender pay gap has more or less stalled out over the past 2 decades. He says your age plays a role, and not in the way you might think.
That younger women are seeing a much narrower pay gap. When women first step into the labor market, they make more than 90 cents to the dollar when compared with men of the same age. But as these women and men age, the gender wage gap increases.
A big reason for that is because more women step out or take a step back in their careers between ages 35 and 44 to take care of their families. The COVID pandemic took a toll on women in the job market for that reason, so much so that it was actually called a she-cession. But things are rebounding, and with low unemployment, employers are offering more to attract talent. So how can women earn more? Well, for that, I spoke with Julia Pollack, the chief economist at ZipRecruiter.
Women are about half as likely to negotiate their offer. But among people who do negotiate their offers, men and women are almost equally likely to get an improvement. About 90% of people who negotiate their offer get some improvement in their offer. So don't leave money on the table. Stand up for yourself.
Some other things you can do: cast a wide net for jobs so you have more than one offer in hand when you're negotiating. Also, do your homework so you know how much your peers in the same position are earning. But Pollack says employers also need to be more transparent about what they're paying, and job sites need to be disclosing this too, since they have more industry data on hand.
Coming up next on Scripps News Live, we're going to explain how a new blood test to predict preeclampsia is offering a promising future for women at risk of pregnancy complications. Also, a new study out reveals a concerning health trend impacting patients recovering from COVID. And a quick reminder right here, you can find our stories and much more online. Feel free to check us out at scripsnews.com, also on X, formerly known as Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and on Threads. We'll be right back.
Law enforcement calls it house stealing, when cyber thieves transfer the title to your home out of your name to take out fraudulent loans or even sell it. How do you protect yourself? Get Triple Lock Protection from Home Title Lock. Our Triple Lock Protection gives you 1, 24/7 monitoring, 2, urgent alerts of any title changes, and 3, title restoration help from our team of experts. Do you know if your title is safe? Check your title status now at HometitleLock.com.
They get it. They know how it works. And more importantly, it works for them.
I don't have any anxiety about money anymore.
I don't have to worry about a mortgage payment every month. It allowed me to live in my home and not have to pay payments.
Linda, Dinah, Joanne, very different people, but they do have a couple of things in common. They love their home and they know their stuff. They all talked about the counseling they got so they knew how a reverse mortgage worked and how it could be a real financial solution for their retirement.
If you're 62 or older and own your home, find out how you could access your home's equity to give you cash now and when you need it in the future. A reverse mortgage could put more money in your pocket by eliminating your monthly mortgage payments, paying off higher interest credit cards, and covering medical costs.
A person like me needed to get a reverse mortgage to change my life. It was the best thing I've ever done. And
Really?
Yes, without a doubt.
Just like these folks, AAG can show you how a reverse mortgage loan uses your built-up home equity to give you tax-free cash. They also know they can pay it back whenever it works for them.
It's a good thing. Call right now to receive your free no-obligation info kit. The kit will show you how you could get the cash you need using your home's equity as a reverse mortgage from AAG. Call 800-431-5319.
I've been with AAG for quite a while now. I think they're the real deal. So look, why don't you get the facts like these folks did and see if a reverse mortgage could work for you?
Call AAG, the country's #1 reverse mortgage lender. Call 800-431-5319. That's 800-431-5319.
I like the always pan and perfect pot, but you look like fun. Only at our place.
Digging deeper into the headlines.
We have some big stories to get to tonight.
Shedding light on groundbreaking investigations and ending your night with something new.
Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Christian Bryant.
Scripps News Tonight, live tonight, starting at 8/7 Central.
And we would like to hear from you. Give us a call on our Scripps News viewer hotline toll free. That number is on your screen right now. It's 1-833-4-SCRIPPS. Feel free to share your comments and your story ideas. Health officials are sounding the alarm on the dangers of a flesh-eating bacteria. It's led to recent deaths in Florida, New York, and Connecticut. Scripps News correspondent Maura Siriani has more on the bacteria and where it's been found.
Doctors are warning this flesh-eating bacteria thrives in heat, specifically warm, salty water, which could be made worse by the upcoming hurricane season. So this bacteria is called Vibrio vulnificus. It is most often found in water where rivers and oceans meet. Experts say it can enter the body through a cut, scrape, wound, or by eating raw or undercooked seafood. That's because the bacteria lives and thrives in the intestines of shellfish and oysters. Experts say the most severe infections are rare. You may just experience nausea or vomiting. Of the roughly 80,000 cases reported annually, 100 are fatal. That's according to the CDC. Now in Florida, so far this year, the State Department of Health reports 26 confirmed cases since January and say the bacteria is responsible for killing 5 people in the Tampa Bay area. In the Northeast, 4 people have died from the infection this year. 1 person in Connecticut and another person in New York died after contracting the bacteria after swimming in different locations on the Long Island Sound, while another person in Connecticut died after eating raw oysters. The cause of the 4th infection, though, detected on Long Island has not yet been released. And experts say if you have a wound, go ahead and wait till it's healed before getting in the water. If you get a cut while swimming, swimming. They say you need to get out immediately and wash it with antibacterial soap and water. Mara Siriani, Scripps News.
New research shows COVID-19 raised patients' risk for high blood pressure. Scientists monitored thousands of COVID and flu patients from 2020 to 2022, and they had no history of hypertension. 6 months after they were treated, 1 in 5 developed high blood pressure. It was twice as likely in people who had COVID than in people who had the flu or other respiratory illnesses. A recently approved FDA test is offering an early warning for childbearing women. It helps predict preeclampsia, a blood pressure disease that affects about 1 in 25 pregnancies in the United States. National correspondent Evie Ramos has more on the condition and the groundbreaking test.
Federal health officials have recently approved a blood test that can identify a deadly condition in some pregnant women. Preeclampsia is the leading cause of disability and death among childbearing women. The condition causes high blood pressure and can lead to organ damage. It usually begins after 20 weeks of pregnancy. A new test can detect if someone will develop the condition within 2 weeks. Those who get a positive result may have to deliver their babies early. Medical experts say symptoms of the disease include headaches, blurry vision, and proteins in the urine.
We have thought for a while, and I remember this from residency, that there's a protein that comes from the placenta that may actually cause preeclampsia. And I think we are actually now realizing that, because the tests that we're talking about today actually test for 2 different proteins that come from the placenta.
Preeclampsia disproportionately affects Black women. They're 3 times more likely to die from the condition than their white counterparts. Black women are also more likely to suffer kidney damage or lose their babies. The condition may have played a role in the recent death of Olympic star Tori Bowie. She was found dead in her home 3 months ago. An autopsy report said she died from childbirth complications. The 32-year-old was 8 months pregnant at the time. Doctors say it's still not clear why cases like hers are mostly seen in the Black community.
Black women are 60% more likely to experience preeclampsia. We do think that there are some socioeconomic factors that may also play into that, but we really don't know, which again is why it's so important that we have a test like this so we can predict who is going to develop preeclampsia.
As of now, there are no treatments to prevent preeclampsia, but some data suggests low-dose aspirin could slightly reduce one's risk of developing the disease.
And that was Evie Ramos reporting there for us. Coming up next on Scripps News Live, we'll meet a Dallas chiropractor who refuses to let statistics shape her life.
There's nothing in my mind that brought me to think that I couldn't make it, putting in the work.
How she managed to crack the code for creating a successful business. We're going to take a look at her plans now to help others. We'll be right back.
You're looking pretty good, Mr. Johnson. But we need to take some x-rays today.
That's why.
Yes, x-rays are expensive, but the front desk said you recently enrolled in a Medicare Advantage plan with extra benefits that now cover today's x-rays and cleaning costs.
Okay.
Well, Medicare Parts A and B do not cover your routine dental coverage like cleanings, fillings, or x-rays. Yes, you have a Medicare Part C plan, commonly called Medicare Advantage. Medicare Part C plans cover everything in Part A and Part B, plus extra benefits like dental, vision, and hearing.
Wow. That's great that my plan includes dental coverage that helps pay for these costs.
Yes, Mr. Johnson. A Medicare Part C plan could include dental coverage that pays for routine dental exams and teeth cleanings, dental x-rays, fillings, tooth extractions, root canals, dentures, implants, and crowns.
If you're losing coverage, moving, or new to Medicare, call to speak with a licensed insurance agent. You don't get a plan with these benefits automatically, so it's always good to call to see if there's a plan with extra benefits available in your zip code. If you don't have a Medicare Part C plan, call now because there may be plans available with additional benefits that are simply not covered under Medicare Parts A and B, like routine dental coverage. In fact, 24 million Medicare beneficiaries do not have any dental coverage. Here's the good news. If you're on Medicare, you can call even if you called last year. We will check to see if there is a Part C plan available in your area with additional benefits. Remember, you don't get Medicare Part C benefits automatically, so call now for your free 2023 no-obligation Medicare benefits review. Just call 800-614-5203. 800-614-5203.
Hey.
Hey, I'm inside the bank.
What?
I don't have much time. Where's the $500?
I said drop your bank and get Dave. The banking app.
What?
There's an easier way.
Oh, she going to jail.
You can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less when you download Dave.
How does Klein Inspector get among the most big verdicts and settlements of any law firm in the country? Because Klein Inspector is an award-winning team with 5 doctor lawyers, the most of any firm in the United States. And that's why the New York Times calls Klein Inspector a powerhouse law firm. So if a defective product, motor vehicle accident, or medical malpractice caused a catastrophic injury, call Klein Inspector.
We found over 14,000 bridges around the country have been in poor condition for over a decade. Does that surprise you?
Scripps News investigates decaying bridges in America. Tuesday night at 8/7 Central, only on Scripps News Tonight.
Welcome back to Scripps News Live. I'm Veronica Dela Cruz. Scripps News continues to highlight Black Business Month, and this afternoon we're focusing on a doctor who's beaten the odds in an industry that rarely sees people of color. National correspondent Jamal Andres pays the doctor a visit.
I'm going to start with a little bit of soft tissue.
Her patients say she makes magic with her hands.
It helps me to be able to move and walk again. She's been a lifesaver for me.
After 20 years of hospital work, Dr. Tamia Guest set her sights on chiropractic care. As a Black entrepreneur, she has beat the odds, growing her business with now 2 locations in the Dallas area.
So I already kind of had a feel for how the medical field works, work with many doctors, nurses, and patients. People felt like they could trust me.
Trust being somewhat hard to come by for Black Americans looking for health care. A Kaiser poll found only 6 in 10 Black adults trust doctors to do what is right most of the time. That's compared to 8 in 10 white adults.
She seemed to take more time out and show more care, more so than her pockets.
So I'm going to have you look over here, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about how the body works.
Guest is part of the less than 2.5% of Black chiropractors in the industry.
Many clients do specify that they would like to see a Black provider.
Guest says she opened her first location right after college with savings and support from family. But the most difficult obstacle was getting her first base of clients in the door.
I'm very shy and an introvert. You can be a good adjuster as far as chiropractic and wellness, but you're going to have to be able to get people in the door, because those things really don't matter if you can't get people in the door.
Nationally, Black-owned businesses are still rare, and long-standing profitable ones are even less common. While a third of businesses overall close within the first 2 years, 8 out of 10 Black-owned businesses close within the first 18 months.
There's nothing in my mind that brought me to think that I couldn't make it, putting in the work.
Since Rejuvenating Chiropractic opened its doors in 2013, it's grown to serve nearly 200 clients a week and opened a second location.
I believe that many of them have stayed with me because I make them feel like family.
And family brings family, like Curtis Weems and his son Amir.
I was kind of nervous because, I know, popping all those bones is, kind of scary.
The trust that I have in her, I bring my sons, several of the football guys come. I have other coaches that come see her now.
I play DB, so, you have to have really good hips. And, her working on my hips really helped a lot.
After 10 years of owning her own business, Guest says she hopes to usher in the next generation of not only chiropractors, but business owners.
I wish I could say it was easy, but you have to really have the discipline and energy to want to work for yourself. I'm really excited for the next 10 years, doing different things that I want to do, and hopefully helping pull other doctors up and train them on how to be, a good chiropractor and, build up their community.
Jamal Andres, Scripps News, Dallas.
Good for her. So nice to see. I'm Veronica Dela Cruz. Thank you so much for joining us today. For the audience leaving us right now, your local programming is up next. And remember, you can always check us out online. Check out scripsnews.com. And if you're staying with us, we have much more news headed your way right here on Scripps News Live. I will be back with you at 3 p.m. Eastern. And Lauren Magarino is up next. She has the day's top stories. We'll be right back.